Welcome to the Big Bookie Podcast. Unfortunately, our host Tyler Forker is out on vacation. Lots of people missing this week since it's a big Thanksgiving week, but even more importantly, a big rivalry week. So we didn't want to have our beautiful listeners not be blessed with our free money content out here. So myself, Brandon, and Chris are here to give you all the picks for the week. I'm going to make sure that your wallet stays fat. Boys, how are you guys doing today?
Good, doing awesome. Happy to be here.
Doing fantastic. Ready for feast week, baby.
It's going to be a fun one. Lots of big rivalries, obviously, per usual, but lots of really interesting Big Ten games on the slate. Starting with Black Friday, the Iowa-Nebraska rivalry that's been pretty heated the past few seasons. We've got another, I say it every single week, but yet another historically low over-under. 26.5 is absolutely unheard of. I I mean, I say it every single week, take the under, and it hits every week. But this one, I don't know if I can do it. Brandon, what do you think?
For the first time, it's like, yeah, Iowa unders are a system play, but this is the lowest total by almost 2 points, like ever. And I don't know how, but somehow, some way, this game's ending 14-10. So we're going for the under once again.
There, Chris, any thoughts on the over under here?
Can't touch the over under here. I think it's too low. 26.5 just seems fishy and it feels due to lose. I kind of almost like Purdue actually looked decent for Nebraska offensively. Think there might be a couple of scores in this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. Purdy seems like he can maybe get that offense going, and Deacon Hill, I mean, he's trash, but he's put up a little more points than he had previously over the last two games. I think he got him all the way to 15. So if Iowa does get to 15, that over under could be in jeopardy. Um, who do you guys like in this game?
Like Iowa, it's a fishy trap like spread. I believe it's hovering around 2 right now, which I
Two,
think
2.5.
haven't seen where Nebraska's been the last couple of weeks. This was a team that really got hot after that Purdue game and has struggled since. And then Iowa on the other side has continued to win ball games. Really, that with that ridiculous Minnesota loss, really only one true loss with Penn State in my eyes. I do like Iowa to go in there and win this. I think these guys have been playing really good defensive football. I know last week was a closer game for them, but just with what their defense is able to do and being able to flip field position the way they do, I do lean Iowa. I don't see Nebraska being able to put up the fight defensively to keep Iowa or offensively to be able to keep up with Iowa. I think the game might have a little bit more points in it, but I do lean Iowa.
That's fair. Brandon, where are you leaning on this game?
I'd have to agree. It all comes down to the trust factor for me, and the only unit I can trust in this entire game is that Iowa defense. They're gonna get the job done, and I don't see a way for the Rule Aid to go bowling this season.
Hey, I've said it before. I only drink the Roulade when the time's right. I'm searching for my water bottle and I don't see it anywhere. But
Oh
do I
man,
dare spray some cologne Roulade into my mouth? Because I think there's a little bit of Roulade.
I don't think there's any Rule Aid in that canister there.
Probably not. I can't find the Roulade, and when I can't find the Roulade, it's a bad sign. But
Exactly.
I'm gonna go against all instincts, and I'm gonna drink the Roulade one last time. I think that Matt Rule is gonna get these guys to a bowl game in his first year as the coach, and this game is what it comes down to. Iowa's already locked up the Big Ten West. Maybe they rest a few of their better players with their sights on something bigger than winning this rivalry game. We saw last year a way worse Nebraska team against what was probably a better Iowa team, and Nebraska got the job done. So you know what? I I don't like doing it, but I'm going to do it. We're going with the Huskers.
I
Um,
gotta respect it, man.
yeah, well, that one will probably come back to bite me, but we'll see. Moving on to the next game. This is another Friday night game being played in Detroit for whatever reason. I know Michigan State fans were not happy about that going into the season once this location was like moved. I mean, I don't think any of them care at this point because
I was gonna
they're
say now they have an
simply
excuse not to go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. But we've got Penn State, 21-point favorites, playing against Michigan State in Detroit. What are you thinking, Chris?
Yeah, well, Penn State, it'll be interesting to see if Drew Alar is out there for them. I know he got banged up last week. Granted, their backup did come in, played well. They were able to cover against Rutgers. This is a very public team this week. 82% of the bets being on Penn State concerns me. And I look at Michigan State, and this team's actually been playing a little bit better football. They were able to win last week. It's still nothing to be impressed about. But I think what we've talked about all season, Michigan State's biggest weaknesses being their secondary. And I think facing teams that are able to throw the ball down the field on them and run up the score in that way. And I don't think Penn State, especially with a backup quarterback in the game, is a team that terrifies me throwing the football against them. I think 21's a large number in a game where Penn State might be without their starting quarterback. There's not a huge incentive for them playoff wise. They're out of that race, and their bowl selection, they'll probably be in a New Year's Six bowl, but I think, just going out and winning is all they really need to do. And I think Michigan State having a game that's granted not a home game, but at Ford Field, I think 21's a lot of points. I would lean towards Michigan State covering that. I don't know if I will bet it, but I think I'd lean towards that. And I'd also lean towards the under in this game too. I don't see either of these teams scoring too many points, as we've talked about with both of these teams before, this stout Penn State defense. So I think whenever we lean towards an under, we usually lean towards the large underdog.
Brandon, do you agree here, or do you have any different thoughts on this game?
It was beautifully said. I just don't trust either offense to be able to get this game to 42 points. I don't trust Penn State's offense to cover a 21-point spread. Again, like Chris said, I'm going to be not betting the spread, but the under, I think, is a very good play.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys on that under. If I had to pick spread, it's one I want to stay away from, but I almost would lean Penn State by 21 along with the under, which is, I know, kind of a bit contradictory, but I just think it's, again, a place where Michigan State's not going to put up more than 3 or 6 points. And honestly, Penn State without Drew Aller looked a little bit better on offense. Bo Pribula, the backup, could scramble. He can at least make plays with his legs, which Aller cannot do. So it'd be interesting to see what happens if he is out there, if he brings that added dimension to that offense. Next up, we're going to go right into it. Noon, Saturday, biggest college football game, not only of this year, but maybe the past 10 years of all time. This is going to be hands down the greatest college football game we've seen in quite some time, at least hype-wise going into it with all that's going on. Both teams are 11-0. I mean, we've had this situation before where both teams are 11-0. Winner goes to the championship, winner goes to the playoffs. But there's an added element with the whole cheating scandal this year. Another added element with Michigan having pounded Ohio State the last 2 years. So it's going to be a fun one. Brandon, we'll start with you. What are you thinking on this game?
This is a battle of the Titans, and this is not one where the loser can sit there and say, hey, I think we like our chances to get in the college football playoff. This is a quarterfinal game in Ann Arbor for the college football playoff. I know it's probably a homer pick. It's a homer lean, but I think the Buckeyes can get it done this Saturday. If they can force JJ into a lot of passing situations, the Wolverines have not shown confidence in him lately, at least. So hopefully, if the Buckeyes can get that run game contained, force JJ to make some throws, some tough throws. This isn't going to be last year where there's 40-yard bombs wide open down the field without defensive backs within 10 yards of him. He's going to have to make the throws to win. I think Ohio State's got the best offensive player. I think the defenses look phenomenal, and I think they're going to finally get their revenge on the Wolverines this Saturday. Take the money line, forget the points.
Love it. Could not have said it better myself. Chris, are you thinking the same thing, or do you lean Michigan? What are your thoughts?
Tough one for betting purposes. I think what's been fun about this game all season long is seeing each week FanDuel, DraftKings, all these sportsbooks have had a future line out. And this thing is bounced anywhere from even to Michigan favored by 7.5. It's been all over. I think this one's really going to come down to what number that it ends up at. I was able to grab this a little while ago at plus 180 for Ohio State. I really liked that number before the Maryland game of you have a Michigan team that doesn't have their head coach right now. They really have struggled a little bit more offensively, especially against blitzes defenses and some different coverages where maybe they knew it was coming, or maybe they were able to predict those defenses better. Granted, at the same time, I think there's value on Michigan at the current number. This is a team that's won twice against Ohio State. They are in Ann Arbor. It's not a fun pick, but I do think Michigan, if they do go up early, is a tough team to be able to come back on, especially with somebody like a Kyle McCord, who to this point has still looked very limited in his abilities to be able to stretch the field, generate big plays, even with the amount of weapons Ohio State has. Concerning for me as well would be 81% of the public also backing Ohio State at this 3.5 number. Seems like a large public favorite that Vegas doesn't really seem to budge on right now. Granted, I do think Ohio State gets it done Saturday. I think Ohio State has to get it done. I think for Ryan Day, this is a legacy game for him without Jim Harbaugh. I think this Ohio State team is more battle tested. I think what we were able to see against Notre Dame on the road, what we were able to see in some of these other Big Ten games has been Ohio State has been resilient. I think Travion Henderson and how he's played the last couple of weeks adds an entire new dimension to this Ohio State offense if he's able to be this explosive and really look like an NFL running back. So I would lean Ohio State, but I'd lean cautiously. I always caution in these large games like this, like with a public handle, just because it's a large game doesn't mean it needs to be a large bet. And I think I could see either side competing in this, but it's going to be an awesome football game, going to be very close. And I think it will come down to who early on takes a lead. I think if Michigan can take a lead early, they're tough to come back on. And I think if Ohio State can get those guys in the deep water and force JJ to throw the ball around, I think Ohio State wins the ball game.
Yeah, and I agree with you on, whoever gets up early, it's going to be hard to come back just because of how tough and how sound both of these defenses are. And that's why I lean towards the under in this game. I've been doing it in a lot of Ohio State games, but this line's kind of high. It's at 46. I can't see. I mean, I just think it's going to be a very gritty game with a lot of big defensive plays, a lot of big stops rather than offenses, a lot of long drives as well. And that's really going to tick the clock, especially with the whole rule where the clock no longer stops on first downs. So I feel like the under is the safest play in this game from my standpoint. And yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm taking Ohio State 3.5. That extra half point is huge. They can lose by 3 and still get it done. And I think this is going to be a game that is probably a 3-4 point game. So I think they're right hitting the nail on the head with that spread. And I'll take Ohio State straight too. I do think they're going to go up there and get it done. But I mean, I don't know. It's going to be one hell of a game. That's for sure.
Be awesome. Excited for it. This is what we waited for all season long. It'll be great to see what these teams end up doing. And hopefully the better team comes out on top and is able to represent the Big Ten well the rest of the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think this will be the most watched game in college football history.
It has to be. It has to be. Both fan bases have been itching for this one. So it's going to be fun. Also at noon, I'm sure nobody will be watching this game aside from maybe the Boiler Express pod and the LEO pod, and maybe the Turtleheads pod will be watching just to see if
Out of spite, probably.
just to see if Purdue loses. But we've got Indiana going on the road to West Lafayette, taking on that Purdue Boilermakers team. Both teams are well out of bowl eligibility. So they're really just playing for the old Oaken bucket, which is quite a fun rivalry trophy. We've got Purdue favored by 3 points. Where are we leaning in this game? Brandon, we'll start with you.
The only way that I see anyone betting this game, watching this game, is if you are one of the sickest human beings on the planet. I don't know. I have no lean. I don't think I'll watch this game. I don't think this game will be. I just don't think there's value on either side, knowing how these teams have done this season. I've got nothing for it, honestly. I'm gonna be watching the game and hope they have fun out there in Ross-Ade.
There we go. Couldn't have said it better myself. Chris, any thoughts on?
Yeah, I think you guys summed it up. Lock of the day for this bet would be the under on viewership. So I think that's a solid play. I would lean Purdue. I think Purdue's been playing a little bit better down the stretch. Indiana losing last week at home to Michigan State kind of feels like a dagger to Tom Allen. I don't know if he sticks around there. I do believe in Ryan Walters. I think Ryan Walters is a really good coach. I think he's going to have something to build on for the future. And I think Purdue's future just looks a lot brighter than Indiana's does. It's hard for me to imagine them losing at home to Indiana, where the teams seems to be two teams going in the opposite direction. So I'd lean Purdue.
Yeah, I don't hate that play. If I had to pick, though, I honestly might go Indiana +3. I just think they've looked like the more complete team over recent weeks. I know they did just lose to Michigan State, which is kind of a low, but I don't know. I kind of Brandon Sorsby can kind of sling it. That and their defense can force turnovers, kind of every now and then. But so yeah, I won't be watching this game, but let's go Hoosiers. Why not? Next up, let's head up to Illinois. Little Central Time action. We got Northwestern, and then against Illinois. Northwestern got to bowl eligibility last week. Huge win for David Braun. Got that interim tag removed. Some really amazing things he's been able to do up there in Northwestern this year. On the flip side, Brett Bielema needs this win to get the Illini to 6 wins, and to even on the year. Definitely underwhelming, based on their expectations going into the season. So on one side, you've got the overachiever, one side, you've got the underachiever. Big rivalry up in Illinois. Where are we leaning? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is one kind of what Brandon said about the last game. I don't really see too much of an edge in this one. I think a lot of people might look at Illinois as an edge purely out of what they're playing to get the bowl eligibility, but I think this game means a lot to Northwestern. Braun's done a phenomenal job with this team, having lost Fitzgerald. I don't think anybody expected anything out of them, and the fact they're going to a bowl this year might be the most shocking bowl team across all of Power 5 football. So tough to bet against that story, but at the same time, I think not much of an edge on either team. Illinois did look decent against Iowa last week. They were almost able to manage to win that game. Don't see enough of an edge to be able to bet either side.
Brandon, what are you thinking?
I'd have to agree for the most part. The spread, what do we have it at? Do we have it out there?
I see 5.5
Towards
points falling
Illinois?
towards Illinois. Yes.
Okay. I don't think I'd have the confidence to lay a touchdown with Illinois, especially with how Northwestern's performed this season. I remember going on Ohio podcast earlier in the year, and I said, no way, Purdue or Northwestern's not going to get 2 wins, 3 wins. There's no prayer for them to go anywhere. What a bad take by me. So I think I'll lay the 5.5 just out of respect for what they've done this season, and see if they can get to that 7-5 mark.
Yeah, I like the 5.5 here too, actually, and think they could take this one outright. Illinois, I don't know if you guys saw today, but Johnny Newton, definitely one of the better players in college football, top 10 projected NFL draft guy, and Keith Randolph, their other defensive tackle, both already announced they're going to the NFL. So this could be a team that's kind of given up after not hitting their earlier season expectations and just kind of looking ahead to the future. And whereas Northwestern has a lot to play for, they're motivated, they're fired up. Season's still going on. So I like the 5.5 for Northwestern here. Next up, we've got Wisconsin, 2.5 point favorites against Minnesota. Big rivalry game. I'll just start out by saying under at 42 is just insanely high for no reason. We're going to be taking that. Hope you guys tail me. But Brandon, where do you lean? I know you are a Badger hater nowadays, but can you take them one last time?
I think I can. Minnesota lately has just been taken to the woodshed. Some tough losses, some blowout losses. The win in Iowa City, that was a win, that wasn't a win, ended up being a win. Don't think they should have gotten the win, but they should have gotten the win the whole time. So I just don't think Minnesota, I have any trust in them. I think Wisconsin's going to want to take a lot of that frustration from the season so far out on the Badgers in this rivalry game. And I don't see Minnesota really laying much resistance to that. So I think I will take the Badgers one last time this year. Maybe we'll go for the win total next year again, but we'll go with the -2.5. We'll take them.
There we go. I like it. I'm going to agree with you there. I think Badgers clean this one up. 2.5 is an easy spread to take. They'll win it by a field goal or more, in my opinion. Chris, do you agree, or are you riding with the Gophers?
Yeah, I like Wisconsin a lot. I think this goes back to kind of what I said with Purdue. Wisconsin seems to be trending in a different direction than Minnesota does. I know the wins haven't been there for Wisconsin, but Luke Fickell there, this program's on the rise. I think 2.5 is kind of a crazy spread for a Minnesota team that's just gotten obliterated the last couple of weeks. I believe their last win was against Michigan State, which that doesn't even have much redeeming quality. So I would lean Wisconsin. I also love your under at 42. Seems like a very high number for these two teams. Especially two teams that are going to run the ball, a lot of clock going to move. I did not realize it was in the 40s. So I really like that pick. That might be the best pick we've thrown out this podcast. So I like that.
I'm gonna make sure I lock that one in right after this podcast before the number starts to fall because it's high for no reason. But yeah, Wisconsin, I mean, they've looked a lot better ever since Tanner Mordecai got back under center. Braden Locke just gave this team no life, but Mordecai, pretty solid quarterback, has the boys playing some ball. And then last game on the Big Ten slate this weekend, pretty big East Coast matchup between the two wannabe Big Ten teams. We've got Maryland favored by 1 right now against Rutgers. Chris, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I would lean towards Maryland. Maryland looked very good recently. I know Maryland's going to be a little bit public team, but that Maryland performance against Michigan was really impressive. That team, really outside of a few miscues in the first half, that game could have been a lot closer than it was. You have a blocked punt, you have Tagovailoa fumbling in the red zone, you remove those types of things, and it's like Maryland had Michigan on the ropes almost. They really played well. I think Tagovailoa looked good against a very solid defense, and Rutgers is trending in the opposite direction. They just got ran all over by backup quarterback at Penn State. So I think, obviously Greg Schiano, probably, if not David Braun, my coach of the year in the Big Ten. He's done a phenomenal job. Rutgers has really, shown a lot more this year than I think a lot of people expected. But I think also what we've said with Rutgers all year long too is this team's a running ball club, and if you force him out of that, having to run, force him to have to pass the ball downfield, they struggle, especially playing behind. And I think Maryland's going to be able to put up some points. I think Maryland's offense took a huge step forward last week. That had to have been a big confidence boost for them. I do see Maryland covering and winning on that spread.
Brandon, where are you leaning?
100% agree. The Rutgers offense has just looked so inept since that halftime lead against Ohio State. I have no trust to put my money on that. Maryland, again, like Chris said, they had the Wolverines on the ropes in that entire game. And two teams that I know Maryland had that rough patch, but they look like they've gotten somewhat back on track. So I'll be backing them on Saturday to get the win in Rutgers, get to that 7-5 mark.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make it a clean sweep on the Terps. They looked like their earlier season form. And I know they have the talent on both sides of the ball. It was all clicking last week. Why not do it one more time and close out the season at 7-5, heading into bowl season? But yeah, lots of fun football games on tap for this Friday and Saturday, Thanksgiving weekend. Let's move into hoops here real quick. So I know we are recording this a few days early, just heads up to the viewers because we got Thanksgiving coming up, lots of busy times for everybody with family. So this game will already be over by the time that the podcast releases, but just wanted to get some quick thoughts so all the listeners can know whether they should be tailing us for the rest of these games or whether they should be fading us for the rest of these games. Tennessee plays against Purdue in the second round in Maui tonight. Huge top 10 preseason matchup. Winner gets to go to that championship game of that tournament. Brandon, where are you laying your points?
I will be backing the Boilermakers once again. We saw the tweet a couple days ago. We laid it against Gonzaga, and that second half was just a clinic by Purdue. I think they do it again tonight. The 3-point efficiency is still out of this world after struggling in the first half yesterday. Edey, still the best big man in the country. I think it's 3.5. It's a little low. I think Purdue wins this game by about 6-7. So we're gonna go with the Boilers once again.
There we go. Chris, where are you leaning?
Yeah, I've been kind of the SEC snake in the grass so far this college basketball season, as we've said, and it's worked out decent for me. This Purdue team, the size with Zach Edey is just such a tough matchup for anybody in college basketball to be able to guard against. And also when they've had the guard play they have recently, this is going to be a really tough out, especially when you're able to, make threes from beyond the arc. I think Purdue looks a lot better guard play than they did previously. I do really like this Tennessee team. I like how battle tested they are this early in the season, having played on the road at Wisconsin and then also having that scrimmage against Michigan State, which was electric back and forth. I know Michigan State hasn't looked great, but I do like the Tennessee's been a little bit more battle tested, but it's tough to fade Purdue. I really like Purdue tonight with the points. Purdue's just so they're able to win in multiple different ways. I think Tennessee is definitely a team that kind of relies on the 3-ball and kind of mid-range shooting, and especially against a team that's going to be able to rebound the way Purdue is. I think you have to back Purdue tonight, and Tennessee would need a pretty big shooting performance in order to be able to beat those guys. So I'm going to back Purdue as well.
Well, if you're not going to be the SEC snake in the grass, I'll take that role tonight. I'm going with the Volunteers. I think Jonas Idu has the size and the athleticism to maybe give Zach Edey a bit of a tougher time down there. They're probably gonna have to slide two on him all game just because of how big he is and how tough he is to guard. But there's a key to beating Purdue, and it's putting pressure on the guards. And there's nobody in college basketball, no backcourt I'd rather have doing that than Vescovy and Zakai Ziegler. Those guys are menaces on defense. And I think they're going to create absolute havoc for Braden Smith and for Fletcher Loyer tonight. And then making shots also is another key. And that's something that Tennessee hasn't maybe been able to do in the past. But I think Dalton Connect, the addition of him on the wing is just so big for this team. I think he's going to be able to knock down some big shots tonight. And having Zakai Ziegler back, like I mentioned, is just huge for the Vols. So I'm riding with the Vols tonight, fading the Big Ten. It usually works. It didn't work yesterday, 3-0 sweep. But yeah, I think the Vols take this one tonight.
Well, it's going to be an awesome college basketball game. We're lucky these early season tournaments have really pretty great schedules for early season tournaments. We usually don't see this in Maui, like this big of a matchup. So it's going to be pretty awesome. And it's going to benefit both these teams going forward. I think playing tough competition in college basketball matters a whole lot more than it does in college football. So it should be fun.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, yeah, before the season started, you can show me this Maui semifinals, and I'll be like, okay, that makes sense for a Final Four. These are, I mean, you got Kansas, Marquette, two other top 10 teams on the other side. I mean, this is going to be an incredible atmosphere. I know it's not in Maui Gym, which is really disappointing, but it's going to be incredible tonight. Going to be must-watch basketball.
Oh, absolutely.
Who would your guys' title tournament pick be then for the Maui? With the other side of that, do you guys think? I know you're on Tennessee, Brandon. You're on Purdue. Who do you think advances to the final and wins this tournament then?
I'm going with Marquette. I was a big Marquette guy late last year. They fell to the Spartans in Columbus, but I think they're going to be a national contender, and they're going to take out Kansas tonight. And probably, I think I'm going to bet against them. I mean, bet against Purdue when Purdue takes out Tennessee tonight.
Love it.
I like it. I'm gonna have to go with Tennessee for my pick for the contender in this. But I mean, all four teams are just insane. It like Brandon said, this could be the Final Four. So it's gonna be super exciting to watch as these semifinals and finals unfold. But I'm gonna ride with the Vols to take it all.
Love it. Yeah, I would wait until there's a winner of that Vols Purdue game. I think these two teams maybe have a little bit of an edge on Marquette and Kansas personally. I know Marquette looked phenomenal at the end of last year, and they definitely have a lot of ability to win basketball games. I think Kansas looked a little bit vulnerable against Kentucky, even though they're the top. Are they still number one in the AP poll? Or
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they looked a little bit vulnerable against Kentucky, but yeah, super excited for these two games. But I'd have to lean slightly to Purdue tonight. But I think whoever wins that Purdue Tennessee game ends up winning this entire thing.
For sure. It's going to be fun to watch it unfold over the next few days here. Looking forward to Thursday. So if you're listening to this podcast, these games are going to tip off soon. So get your phones out and be ready to put down whoever had the right take on that Tennessee Purdue games. That we can start with Texas A&M and Penn State. So we saw Texas A&M get a win in the Schottenstein Center against Ohio State earlier this season. Penn State's undefeated, but they haven't really had that big of a game. Where are we leaning? I haven't seen a spread on this game, but what are early thoughts?
Yeah, no spread yet, but I love this Texas A&M Aggie team. They did come into Columbus. I faded them foolishly, and the defense is just always there, no matter where you are with this team. They press, they are always on you. Penn State, yeah, they're undefeated, but I don't see this being a tournament ball club personally this year. They lost Shrewsbury, obviously. They were a very old team last year, and I don't see them really competing with A&M. I think I would take A&M anywhere from -6+ or between about 6 and below. I would take without a hesitation in the world.
Yeah, I think Brandon hit the spread on the head. I was going to say 5 points, 6 points for A&M, and I would lean towards A&M as well. I think A&M's a tournament team, and Penn State isn't. I think also being able to go into the shot, even though that's not the most riled up crowd, it's against a really good college basketball team, and they really kind of handled business there. I think that game was close, but Texas A&M controlled a lot of it, so I do like A&M to win this one too.
I'd have to agree with you guys on that one. Let's look at another Thursday matchup. We've got Iowa and Oklahoma. I actually have not watched any Oklahoma basketball this year. Don't really know much about the squad they've got rolling out there. I know Iowa, it's your typical Iowa squad, lots of points, a little bit of defense, quite the polar opposite of what you get in football. So what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's actually just comical how polar opposite. There could not be two other ends of the spectrum than Iowa basketball and football. Uh, if I don't know what the over under is going to be, but honestly, whatever it is, I'll probably be betting the over. Iowa just they spray from three all game long, and they do not play any defense. So I don't know what the over under is going to be. As long as it's not anything astronomical like we get in the football with the unders, I think I'll have to take the over.
Yeah, Iowa, super fun college basketball team to watch with how much they're able to score. This might be one. I haven't watched Oklahoma yet this year, so I don't want to give a pick on it, but I will definitely be looking out on the Big Bookie Twitter for Brant's player prop. This screams some player prop over on points from Brant. I'll be very interested to hear who that is. I know he's been hot on that, so you'll have to keep me up to date on that, but don't want to give out a pick on the spread yet, not knowing enough about Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'll find a player prop and it will hit. I just need to do a bit more research into Oklahoma, maybe watch some film, see what their roster build's looking like this year. Because that's one team I honestly don't know too much about right now. One more Thursday game I wanted to touch on, and this is a huge one. We've got Arizona, who had that big win over Duke earlier this season against Michigan State, who hasn't started as hot as maybe we anticipated, but still definitely a lot of talent on that team. A lot of returning guys as well, and they are battle tested, which is big this early into the season. Where are we leaning, Chris? We can start with you.
Yeah, I like Arizona a lot. I think Caleb Love being there brings a different dimension to what they're able to do. I think that team was a shocking first round upset in the tournament last year, but they're really strong. And Michigan State has struggled a little bit in this early season. Like, don't get me wrong. I still think Michigan State has a promising season ahead of them. I don't think the Big Ten is out of reach for them. This is a really strong team, and they're getting more and more battle tested. But I mean, Arizona they've looked really good. This team can score a lot of points, but they're also a defensive ball club. I would lean towards Arizona in this. I would imagine the spread's going to be closer than people think. I think people with Michigan State having a couple losses will be surprised when the spread's closer to a pick 'em or a 1.2 point spread would be my guess. But I'd lean Arizona at that number. I'd be surprised if it's higher than that.
Fair. Brandon, thoughts here?
If this game ends up being a pick 'em, I think it's going to be the 10 unit play on the Wildcats. I think this will probably, in my opinion, be a spread of about 3, which I'm still comfortable with leaning on the Arizona Wildcats. The Spartans, they will get it figured out. I have no doubt in my mind, but this early in the season, the Wildcats already look like a well-oiled machine, and I think they are offensively sound, defensively sound. Spartans don't have it figured out yet, and I don't want to bet on a team that doesn't have it figured out. So we're going to be back in the Wildcats. Hopefully, it's like Chris said, closer to a pick 'em. I do think it will be probably about 2.5, if I'm being honest. But I will be laying the points or the money line, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, I do think this is going to be a fun game. I think as long as Michigan State is making shots, which they hadn't been for a while, but they kind of started to come on there at the end of that Duke game. I think it can be back and forth. But yeah, I think it'd be dumb to not take Zona in this game. Will be interesting to see what that spread is. One more
Yeah,
game
with the
I wanted
non-conference before we move on. Last week on the pod, I was going against the Big Ten all with my picks. We went with UConn over Indiana, easy win. Villanova over Maryland, even easier win. It's a trend that I know this is a Big Ten podcast, but the Big Ten this year is not the Big Ten that we've seen as of late. So until they show me otherwise, we might be fading our boys a little too much.
Yeah, this conference has looked really, really poor throughout the first week or two here of college basketball. One more game I did want to touch on. We've got the Emerald Coast Classic, Ohio State, another SEC matchup playing against that Alabama team that's just made up of transfer after transfer after transfer. But they've looked like a solid squad so far throughout the season. Brandon, do you think Ohio State can get it done, or do you think this is one where Bama walks away with it?
Um, Back to the Big Ten fade. I am not back in Ohio State again. It would take a lot for me to actually bet against Ohio State. If this spreads 4 and below, it might force my hand. I think Ohio State's a fine basketball team. They're gonna be a fringe tournament team, but Alabama, they've shown with Nate Oates that they are just a great basketball program now. Shocker with how the football program's been. Alabama basketball is trying to get on that level, but Ohio State, I can't back them right now. They are very underwhelming typically lately, and hopefully they change it around. Hopefully it doesn't cost me my money, but hopefully the Buckeyes can get it figured out at some point here.
Yeah, very fair. Chris, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'll come out and say now, I hate betting against Ohio State. I hate it as an alum, but this Ohio State basketball team continues to be underwhelming and underwhelming and underwhelming. I think there's so much money poured into the athletic programs at Ohio State. And really growing up, I was used to great basketball teams under Thad Matta and watching these guys compete in Final Fours and be a perennial tournament team. And under Holtzman, we've not reached that level. We just, outside of the Oral Roberts first round loss, I think that's the last time we were in the tournament. And it's frustrating to watch as a fan. I think Alabama is a team that's just better coached. I think even though they have a bunch of transfers, they just play a style of basketball that's more explosive than what Ohio State's able to do. Ohio State's not able to string together 80-point games. I just don't think that's like something they can possibly do. I don't think they can shoot that well. And I'll even come out to say now there's not odds on it yet. I know there will be at some point. I know we'll talk about it at some point. This Ohio State basketball team is not a tournament team. I did not see them sneaking into this field. I think the Big Ten, even though they haven't looked great this year, I think the Big Ten's pesky. I think a lot of these teams are going to grow as the season goes on. And Ohio State just has so many guys on this team that I feel like have been underwhelming for a while now. I will be very interested to see what their tournament odds are, as I'd love to hit them not to make this tournament.
Ooh, I don't like that. I disagree. I directly disagree with that take. I think this is a team that's going to grow as the season goes on. And as we've seen, the Big Ten is not good this year. There's going to be some teams from the conference who maybe shouldn't be in the tournament, like this Ohio State squad, or maybe like that Indiana squad, who are going to sneak in inevitably. And I think that backcourt is solid. You've got two sophomores and Thornton and Roddy Gale. They can make shots. Thornton can disperse the ball. He can drive. Maybe defensively, they're both not as sound as they could be. But I think it's a team that they're going to find a way to win games and Big Ten play this year. Quite the opposite of what we saw last year. But I think they can get it done, and I think they will sneak in.
Hope they prove me wrong. I hope so. We'll see.
Would love it.
Long season.
Definitely a long season, so it's going to be fun to keep up with not only the Buckeyes but the whole rest of the conference. Well, thank you guys for listening to Big Bookie today. Hope you guys tail us on all of our bets and just simply make more money by listening to us. We'll catch you next week. Happy Rivalry Week.